Now, we are starting our series about breaking the wheel of the final illusion, or Mayavada, the conception that I am God. Some people ask, why do the Vaishnavas so strongly condemn and oppose this Mayavada philosophy? The response is that the Vaishnavas desire the true spiritual welfare of humankind, the living entities in this world. Not just human beings, but everyone. And this Mayavada philosophy, it masquerades itself as something that is spiritually uplifting, whereas in truth, it is actually a self-defeating philosophy. It does not give any true spiritual betterment to the self or the soul. Even the Mayavadis cannot actually achieve that goal that they proclaim to be their aspiration. They cannot achieve any ultimate happiness, love, joy by following this kind of impersonal philosophy. Therefore, Vaishnavas condemn this philosophy. They do it as a warning to people in general who can easily fall prey to this impersonalistic philosophy. If the Vaishnavas did not strongly condemn this Mayavada, people would more easily fall sway to it. Therefore, Vaishnavas strongly preach against Mayavada. It is like talking someone back off a ledge when they are about to commit suicide. Mayavada is described to be spiritual suicide, so it's the most dangerous form of self-harm. So in this series, we're going to give Vaishnava arguments and logical refutations of Mayavada. First, we'll discuss some of the origins of Mayavada. Our Param Gurudev Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj wrote a book called Vaishnava Vijay, The Victory of Vaishnavas. In that book, he described the origins of Mayavada and arguments against Mayavada. And in this way, he established also the absolute truth from the pure Vaishnava conception. Mayavada has been present in this world since Vedic times for thousands of years. Ravan, for example, is described to be a Mayavada or impersonalist. And since the decline of the Vedic age, we have seen Mayavadas and Mayavadis present. However, it was most strongly propagated by Adi Sankaracharya, himself the incarnation of Shiva. Lord Shiva, people may ask, he is called the greatest of Vaishnava. Vaishnavanam yata Shambhu. The Bhagavatam describes Shiva is a great Vaishnava. Towards the end of the Bhagavatam, it says Ganga is the greatest of rivers and Shiva is the greatest of Vaishnavas. And this Purana is the greatest of the scriptures, Puranas. So how is it that the greatest of Vaishnavas, Lord Shiva, preached this impersonalistic philosophy that is completely against the personal conception of God and the devotees and their eternal relationship? In Mayavada, there's no real possibility of bhakti. And you're not a Vaishnava if you do not perform bhakti. How will you worship the Lord if the Lord doesn't exist, or if you are the same as the Lord? And so how is it possible that Shiva, himself being the greatest of Vaishnavas, the greatest followers of bhakti, how could he preach again about this philosophy of Mayavada? This is very interesting. So in Mayavada, there's no possibility of bhakti. In this world, however, we see the most Mayavada you'll find is at festivals like Bhakti Fest. The so-called gurus there, most of them, they use bhakti to try to get to people because bhakti is very attractive. And then using bhakti as a attraction, then they preach Mayavada. It's a very insidious thing. Many Mayavadis, they preach even the Bhagavatam, talk about Krishna Lila, Ras Lila, chant the Mahamantra, which is the essence of bhakti. It's meant to nourish the devotees, bhakti. But then they ultimately say, oh, we are that Krishna, we are that Radha, we are all one. So the Vaishnavas teach that we must defeat this philosophy. Param Gurudev, Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada, they said, as long as Mayavada is present in this world, then we will not have been completely successful in our preaching. We must destroy this Mayavad. That's why we're doing this series, to try to follow the footsteps and teachings of our Guru Varga. So the origins of Mayavad, as we heard, it's coming from Sankaracharya. So why Krishna instructed Shiva, you should go and propagate this Mayavad. Krishna told him, Mayavadats ashashastram prachanna bodham uchyate mayaiva kalpitam devi kalau brahmana rupina. This is from the Padma Purana. There, Shiva is speaking to goddess Parvati, and he says, O Devi, O goddess, in the age of Kali, of quarrel, I will appear as a Brahmin to spread this Asat Sastra, Mayavad philosophy, which is a false scripture. And it is covered Buddhism or avoidist philosophy, Shunyavad. The Lord himself sent Shiva with this instruction. In the Varaha Puran, there's a verse where Vishnu instructs Shiva. He says, Esa moham srijam yaso yo janan mohayishyati tvam cha rudram mahabaho moha sastrani karaya. O powerful Shiva, Vishnu says, please descend and compose books filled with lies that bewilder people. Preach a collection of these lies and place yourself in the front with this Mayavad philosophy and conceal my true nature. In the Padma Puran, there's a verse. Here he says to Shiva, Svagamai kalpitaistvam cha janan mad vimukam kuru mancha upaya yena shat shristir esato tara. So he says to Shiva, you should turn the general people against me with your imaginary hypothesis, camouflage me so that those who are very materialistic and filled with demonic tendencies will not enter within the society of the devotees and disturb and pollute that society. Instead, those people will be bewildered by this false philosophy and they will develop desire for material advancement. Why then did Lord Shiva, being the greatest of Vaishnavas, come and do this activity? Firstly, being a Vaishnava, he is under the direction of the Lord and carries out the Lord's will. Vishnu anucharatvam hi moksham ahurmanishana. One who is a Vaishnava follows the will of the Lord. So why did Vishnu desire this Mayavad to be preached? First, we need to understand that in the Vaishnava philosophy, the jivas who turn away from the absolute truth become covered over by Maya, illusion. The root anartha, or obstacle in the heart that keeps us separate from our true dharma and our true relationship with the absolute truth, is that we desire to enjoy separately from that absolute truth, Supreme Lord Krishna. We have no inclination towards devotion, bhakti, and relationship with Krishna. That is the initial tendency that has come up within the self. And so having turned away from Krishna, we are covered over by many layers of ignorance and materialistic tendencies, lust, greed, anger, madness, illusion. These things increase more and more. We become more and more engaged in sinful activities, causing harm to other living entities. To keep those kinds of jivas from disturbing the devotees, then the Lord arranged for Mayavad to be created. So it has some purpose. Everything in this world that is created by the Lord has some utility. If this Mayavad was not present, many demonistic and materialistic people would enter into the sadhu sangha and disturb and pollute those devotees. In Kali Yuga anyhow, we hear Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada says, Nake tila galai mala etoe kalir shale. That, oh, just see, people are putting on tilak and neck beads and masquerading themselves to be great Vaishnavas, but really they are followers of Kali. Kali, who is the personification of sin and depravity in this age. So, even still, people enter into Vaishnava association and pollute it from within. Therefore, the Lord sent Lord Shiva to start this Mayavad philosophy. So, he wanted that only those with real devotion would follow this Bhakti Vaishnav path, and others would be misled. This was the first cause. Now, there's another reason for the Mayavad philosophy to be started or propagated by Sankaracharya, and that is to reestablish the authority of the Vedas. That's why it's called covered Buddhism or Shunyavad. The Lord appeared previously in one incarnation as Buddha. So it's very interesting. The Lord comes as Buddha and then undermines faith in the Vedas, because there were many people who had, in Kali Yuga especially, they were using some pretense of a few verses in the Sastras that says you can do some kind of animal sacrifice, whereas truly it was done for the betterment of those animals. The old aged animal would be put in the sacrifice and would be given renewed life and youth, vitality. But then they were taking use of these things. In the scriptures, there are some prescriptions that, oh, you may take this alcohol after a sacrifice, or you may engage in this kind of sex life, because they know that's the tendency of the living entities, so to gradually curtail it, they give some provision for it. So at that time, Buddha came to stop people from doing this animal slaughter. But to do that, he had to undermine their faith in the Sastra. Then later, the Lord arranged Shiva would preach Mayavad, and he would bring people back to Vedic understanding and faith in the Vedas. We see Buddhism isn't so much present in India now. If it weren't for Adi Sankaracharya and his establishment of covered Buddhism, then you could say even Sanatana Dharma would have been greatly undermined. But really, Mayavad is covered Buddhism because it is teaching undifferentiated oneness, which is ultimately synonymous with voidism. If there is no individual self-awareness, then if we're all just one, then we don't have, it's like having no awareness of anything. So Sankaracharya came and he brought people who were being swayed by Buddhism back into the Sanatana Dharma in this covered way. Most Brahmins at that time, they had become Buddhists and had completely given up Sanatana Dharma, the real Vedic path. And so therefore Sankaracharya on one hand did a great service. We see these two reasons there for the creation of Mayavad. Firstly, to keep away those not qualified for the path of pure bhakti. And secondly, to reestablish the authority of the Vedas and bring people back into the culture of the Vedic tradition. So we're going to continue this series in the next videos. Thank you for your time. We're going to discuss all the different Vaishnava refutations of the Mayavad philosophy and many other interesting points as well. So thank you for your time. Subscribe and share with your friends. Help us grow our channel. Thanks so much. Stay tuned for the next video coming up tomorrow. Haribo.